Welcome back to Let's Play Mega Man. We've defeated all of the robot masters, got ourselves 5 killer special weapons and the hyper bomb, so now we can finally take on Dr. Wily himself. And I introduce you to the most annoying sound in the universe. Hate that shit. Wanna know what else I hate? Those big jumping enemies that take away 1/3 of your health. So how many do they put in front of Wily's Castle? 3 of them! Luckily we have the ice slasher, so we can freeze them in midair and walk underneath them. It doesn't make sense, but I don't really care. At this point we have all of the special weapons, so let's put them to good use. You have to be careful though, because the weapon energy does not refill in between the Wily stages. Your health does, but the weapons don't. You could get a game over because that refills all of your weapon energy, but sends you back to the beginning of the stage. One thing I forgot to mention before is that enemies infinitely respawn every time you scroll the screen back to the point where they're supposed to spawn. The reason they do this is, throughout the Mega Man series there are points where you might need an item to progress with the stage. So if you run out of ammo for that item, you need some way of regaining that ammo. So you have to keep grinding respawning enemies, which can be a very long and tedious and not fun process. Also, I think now is as good a time as ever to talk about some trivia and some other stuff that I forgot to mention before. For example, don't switch weapons when you're on the ladder, or at least hold up or down when switching weapons on the ladder, because Mega Man will always let go of the ladder. Probably because the game is technically loading a different character, so it forgot what your previous character was doing at the time. But I think it's time for some trivia about Dr. Light. For example, he doesn't get the Americanized name of Dr. Light until later Mega Man games. In this one he's called Dr. Wright with a W, like Phoenix Wright. His design is based off of Santa Claus with a big puffy white beard, and his first name Thomas comes from Thomas Edison. Just like Dr. Wily's first name Albert comes from Albert Einstein. By the way, this is where I show up that you can use the Elect Beam to also get rid of the Godsman blocks. We'll get into some more trivia about Mega Man himself in the next stage, so for now I leave you with the fact that the magnet beam also causes the speed drop when it disappears underneath you, just like the platforms in Godman stage. Now that that's out of the way, we're gonna see some familiar faces from Iceman stage. It's the return of the random patternless shooting at you platforms from Iceman stage! Yay! But this time you're in a much more confined area and the ceiling will also kill you, why not? So the spike ceilings also make it a bit harder to skip by this with the magnet beam. It's still possible, but it's a bit harder to do than in Iceman stage, and I don't know why I have the ice slasher equipped for no reason, I'm not gonna use it. But yeah, partially because of these things and the boss of this area, this was probably the most frustrating part of this playthrough, because I did a lot of retakes on this one. And it can very easily be someone else's least favorite stage because of this room and this room alone. Because this is the room where you need the magnet beam in order to progress. Otherwise you, well, can't get up here and you're stuck. Luckily, if you do have the magnet beam but are out of ammo for it, you can keep going back to the room below because there are energy pickups and those will infinitely respawn, so you can refill the entirety of the magnet beam. Yay. But now we're at the end of the stage and we're about to get introduced to the probably the most infamous boss in all of Mega Man history. Definitely the hardest boss in this game, it's the Yellow Devil, though in some Americanized versions due to censorship it's called the Rock Monster, but that's lame. Let's start this thing off with a noob trap, because where's the boss? Well, if you wait for it, you're about to see that he's spawning in from the other side, because that's fair. The first time you play this game you can totally see that coming. But if you think that's where the boss gets his fame, you've got another thing coming. First of all, he's weak to the Elect Beam, but you can only hit him once in a row. After that, he's gonna teleport to the other side of the stage. Peace. Bye. Peace. Pretty much the way to beat this boss is he always moves the same pieces in the same order, so you're gonna have to memorize the shit out of that pattern. Now what else makes this boss annoying? Well, you both do equal amounts of damage, so you can only afford to get hit less than once per phase. And that's only if you manage to hit him every time. And that's only if you manage to get anywhere with full health. And to add on top of that, he also shoots at you in between phases. So because of all of that, you're gonna have to be able to get through entire phases without getting hit multiple times. So once again, this takes memorization timing, and a lot of fucking memorization. Look at this, we both need one more hit and then we're defeated, except he still has the advantage because he just gets to hit me a lot more times and before I even get to hit him once. And look, right here I'm so close to getting hit by his eyeball laser, but I managed to hit him right before that happens. I just beat my pants a little. However, if you're unable to beat him and just wanna get to the next stage, there is a way to make it a lot easier, but it's considered cheating and I'm not a cheater. Most of the time. It's something that's known as the pause trick. You can hit him with the elect beam and while it's hitting him you can pause the game, and when you unpause the game it will hit him again, and you can keep doing this over and over again and he'll be dead in no time. Oh, by the way, this is the Firestorm, the weapon we got from defeating Fireman. It shoots a little fireball forward while also creating a little shield around you, so it's pretty useful. I like it. I like it a lot. We also got the Ice Slasher, which freezes enemies but does no damage. And it's Cutman again! Hey, how have you been? I'm sorry about murdering you. Now allow me to do so again. Hey, remember how I said I have this personal rule that I have to be able to defeat half the Robot Masters without using their weakness? Well, this is one of them. So now I've defeated both Cutman and Bombman without using their weakness, though in this one I kind of have to beat Cutman without using his weakness because there are no throwable blocks around. So we're almost there. The last Robot Master I have to defeat without using his weakness is Gutman, but that's not until later. So yeah, spoiler alert, all the Robot Masters are back. It's never really explained how or why. I always assume that when their exploding animation happens, it's sort of, they're not really dead, they're just defeated, and that exploding animation is just an animation. So that they were still around and not dead. But either that or Wily just made backups of all the Robot Masters. Oh yeah, this is the only Mega Man game where the refighting of all the Robot Masters, the boss rush if you may, works differently than in all the other Mega Man games. And I think Mega Man X1 sort of references this a bit. But now it's time to talk about that Mega Man trivia I promised earlier, because I have to do that before I get to the boss of this area. First of all, Mega Man himself, or Rockman himself rather, went through a lot of name changes. The one word that popped up a lot during those name changes was the word rainbow, because Mega Man has different colors when he switches different weapons. You know, like different colors of a rainbow. The reason Mega Man is blue is simply because the NES had a very limited color palette and the one with the most shading was blue, so they made him blue. And my final piece of Mega Man trivia is one I'm not entirely sure if it's true or not, so consider it a rumor. At least I heard it and then I did some research on it and couldn't find anything on the subject. So I could be wrong on this one, but the piece of trivia is that Mega Man is actually two sprites pasted over each other. They actually did this more often with sprites back in the day. The reason is because the sprites on the NES could only have 4 colors per sprite and Mega Man is made out of 5 colors. So that concludes our trivia segment of today. The more you know. This is always nice to see. I actually have a little list of things I need to talk about in each playthrough, and it's always satisfying to see most of the list being crossed out. Just a bit of a personal thing. It doesn't really have anything to do with you or the game, and no one cares. Also, this is me being indecisive about which weapon I want to refill. Then I realized the only 2 weapons that matter right now is the weapon I choose to use on the next boss and the super arm, which is the weakness of the boss after that. The ammo of all the other weapons don't really matter because of a very special item that's coming up in the final stage. But maybe you noticed I just said the weapon I choose to use on the next boss, and that's because you can actually use a variety of weapons on this boss. However, this boss will also use the exact same weapon on you because he is a clone of you. Whatever weapon you have equipped at that moment, he will use against you as well, and you can switch if you want to, and then he switches as well. However, you can't beat him with any weapon, because the Hyper Bomb is still useless, the Magnet Beam is not a weapon, and the Super Arm doesn't have any rocks to throw. So when you use any of those, he's still in the advantage because he can do touching damage. So that leaves you with the Pea Shooter, which can be pretty difficult. The Rolling Cutter, which can be pretty fun to use because you might keep track of which Rolling Cutter was yours and which was his. The Thunder Beam, which I already used way too much throughout this playthrough. And so I went with the Firestorm because I like to hit him with a little shield it creates around you. However, the most important thing to remember about this boss is that he jumps when you press the shoot button, and you, well, if you're smart, you use this to your advantage, because this is the only boss you kind of get to control a bit. So use that, because it really helps when you know how to manipulate him into jumping into your shots. But he's already long defeated, and this part is going on for way too damn long after nothing is happening. So join me next time at the final part of Let's Play Mega Man. See you then.